evening, televiewers, and welcome back on DBS Television. This is the news. FIFA President Gianni Infantino, along with CAF officials and Cameroon's Prime Minister, officially opened the African Championship CHAN on Saturday in Yaoundé, Cameroon. Following the government's directives to allow only 25% of fans into the stadium, Infantino applauded the country's measures put in place to curb the spread of coronavirus in stadia during the competition. "I am very happy to be in Cameroon to witness the kickoff of the CHAN, the first international tournament of the year, first national team games, beautiful ceremony today in Yaoundé in the stadium, which was not full because of COVID-19 restrictions, but still 25% of capacity was there," Infantino said. Before the kickoff of the competition, Infantino carried out a 2-day trip to Cameroon where he took stock of the quality of the sport infrastructure in the 3 host cities of the competition, namely Yaoundé, Douala and Limbe. Following the visit, he subsequently attended a ceremony which conferred the title of CAF Honorary President to Issa Hayatou, who previously presided over the confederation from 1988 to 2017. The African Nations Championship CHAN kicked off in Yaoundé on Saturday, January 16. Host Cameroon opened Group A of the football tournament with a 1-0 win over Zimbabwe on Saturday at the Amadou Ahidjo Stadium, with the sole goal from Indomitable Lion Salomon Banga at the 72nd minute. After the hard struggle, they had the victory against the Warriors of Zimbabwe, opening the competition with a win. The next Group A match was between Mali and Burkina Faso, where Siaka Bagayoko scored the only goal for Mali. Siaka Bagayoko scored the goal in the 70th minute, making it enough to settle the encounter in Yaoundé. Cameroon and Mali are now expected to meet in their next encounters on Wednesday at the Amadou Ahidjo Stadium in Yaoundé. A few meters from the central town in Fumbot, the Noun division of the West region of Cameroon, is a locality known as Petit Paris. Here, there is a training center where IDPs from the northwest and southwest are being given a career in general mechanics. The proprietor, Augustin Wynkem from the northwest, says the need to have these young Cameroonians occupied prompted him to offer them such an opportunity.
I see that these children that have left Baminda and Southwest and come to Fumbot, because maybe there is enough space for them to remain in Fumbot idle. It was not good. So I told them to come and work with me here, not to sit on the road and be idle.
Training here is free of charge, and after 3 years, they are expected to stand on their feet, capable of doing same for others.
I was trained, so since I was trained, I had this colleague, this internal displays, so that I'm also training, so that in the process of training.
An offer which the IDPs themselves have readily seized.
I am just here for a formation, at least for 3 years. My real purpose here is to know what I am here to do and to know what to have what I want to have.
In addition to the electricity shortages that they go through practically on a daily basis, the management of the center says they also lack necessary equipment to bring this lofty initiative to blossom. Sectors like this one fall within the confines of the Ministry of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, and it would only be lifting if the state could assist him to train as many children as possible. Opening the African page, President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda has been re-elected for the 6th time into office. He guaranteed 58.6% of the vote, while main opposition candidate Bobi Wine had 34.8%, the Electoral Commission said at a news conference on the final result over the weekend. The United States and an African election monitoring group complained of election irregularities, and Wine, a 38-year-old singer turned lawmaker who had rallied young Ugandans behind his call for political change, called the result a complete fraud. On Friday, Wine claimed victory in the presidential elections, calling it a complete sham as early results gave Museveni a wide lead. He told journalists soldiers had beaten his security guard before taking up position around his home. After the results were announced, many neighborhoods in normally bustling Kampala were usually quiet as nightfall approached. Museveni supporters rallied downtown and danced with posters bearing his face. Museveni, 76 and in power for 35 years, campaigned for another term, arguing his long experience in office makes him a good leader and promising to keep delivering stability and progress. Clashes erupted in Tunisian cities for a fourth consecutive evening on Sunday. Angry youths threw stones against security forces despite a tight lockdown to curb the spread of coronavirus. In Etad Hamen, a neighborhood close to the capital Tunis, the young shot rocks at riot police, who responded with tear gas. Authorities say they have arrested dozens of young people during consecutive nights of disturbances in the capital and other cities amid a nationwide anti-coronavirus lockdown imposed since Thursday, days to the 10th year since the autocratic leader Ben Ali fled power. A 26-year-old resident, Usama, said these aren't protests. It is young people who are coming from nearby neighborhoods to rob and entertain themselves. From nightfall, young people gathered again on the roofs of houses to lob stones and fireworks at police and National Guard officers. A decade on from the revolution, many Tunisians are increasingly angered by poor public services and a political class that has repeatedly proved unable to govern coherently. Intercommunal conflict in Sudan's restive Darfur region. More than 80 people have been reported dead by doctors in 2 days of fighting between rival ethnic groups. Saturday's clashes initially broke out between the Masali tribe against Arab nomads in Al Genina about 2 weeks after the United Nations and African Union ended a 13-year peacekeeping mission in Darfur. International peacekeepers began a phased withdrawal from Darfur earlier this month. Hundreds more have been injured during the unrest in El Geneina. Reports say the violence began when an Arab man was stabbed to death by a man from a non-Arab group, leading to an exchange of gunfire. Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok has sent a high-ranking delegation to West Darfur to try to restore order. After the floods of January 11 from River Rusizi in Burundi, many victims have been rendered homeless and are now asking for protection in the regions of Gatumba and Mutimbuzi. The heavy rains had displaced thousands of people from their homes in the regions located 5 kilometers from Bujumbura province, causing havoc. For environmental experts, the effect of climate change and poor land planning have aggravated the situation. The National Platform for Risk Prevention and Disaster Management has recommended that people should be relocated from this border area of the DRC. This is the second time that this region has been affected by flooding in less than a year. In May last year, floods displaced more than 27,000 people. Majority of them still live in the displaced sites. United Nations peacekeeping troops said they have retaken control of a city in the Central African Republic captured 2 weeks ago by armed groups waging an offensive against the government of President Faustin Archange Touadera. Rebels abandoned their positions in Bangassou, 750 kilometers east of the capital Bangui, and fled the city following an ultimatum on Friday from the UN peacekeeping force MINUSCA, the mission's spokesman Vladimir Montero reported late Saturday. Armed groups waging a nationwide offensive captured the city on January 3, forcing many residents to flee across the border to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Juan José Aguirre, the bishop of Bangassou, said after 13 days sleeping outdoors, people will be able to return to their homes. 6 of the most powerful armed groups who have occupied roughly 2/3 of the country for 8 years united a month ago to wage an offensive. The coalition announced their offensive ahead of the December 27 presidential and legislative votes aimed at preventing Touadera's re-election. Over to Russia, prominent opposition leader Alexei Navalny was taken into police custody after arriving in Moscow from Germany on Sunday, defying warnings by Russian authorities. After landing at Moscow's airport, Navalny said all charges against him were trumped up and that he was not afraid of anything and asking you not to be afraid of anything. His detention has been slammed by European and US officials who are calling for Russian authorities to immediately release him. His lawyers this Monday said they had not been granted access to him since he was detained and that his condition was unknown. Navalny's wife said that authorities were scared of her husband and were showing that by disrupting flights and detaining a huge number of people just over a man who is returning to his homeland. Navalny left Berlin on a flight operated by a Russian airline and was scheduled to land at Moscow's Vnukovo airport. Several world powers, including the US and some European countries, have condemned his arrest, calling on Russia to release the Kremlin critic. France has begun a nationwide campaign this Monday to vaccinate people over 75 years of age as officials sought to ease concerns about deliveries of coronavirus vaccines. Some 5 million people aged 75 and older are now eligible to sign up to get the first dose of the vaccine as of today. The European country, which saw its death toll surpass 70,000 at the weekend, has so far given priority to healthcare workers and elderly people in their care. France's health ministry stated that any eligible person who could not make an appointment this Friday will be able to do so in the coming weeks. Eligible members of the public are able to book appointments by calling their nearest vaccination center or by arranging an appointment online. Health Minister Olivier Véran announced on Friday that 833 vaccination centers around the country were open and accessible for appointments. He stated that over 1 million vaccinations will be carried out by the end of January and between 2.4 and 4 million by the end of February. Worries have grown that delays in the delivery of Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine could hamper the vaccine rollout in Europe that has already come under much pressure for being too slow. Brazil's health regulatory agency Anvisa unanimously approved on Sunday the emergency use of AstraZeneca and Sinovac Biotech vaccines against COVID-19, allowing the country to kickstart deploying shots as the virus rises in Latin America's largest economy. The health regulators approved the vaccines, citing the recent significant increase in the number of cases in Brazil and the lack of alternatives for treatment of the disease. As a result, Brazil's Sao Paulo state vaccinated the first person in the country against COVID-19 just minutes after the approval. The first to be vaccinated by Governor João Doria was 56-year-old nurse Monica Calazans, who later appeared at a press conference beside him and urged people not to be afraid. At least 111 other health workers from the hospital were also vaccinated. Health Minister Eduardo Pazuello announced the government would start distributing vaccines to all 27 states on Monday for a national inoculation campaign to start on Wednesday. Health workers, people older than 75, residents of age, and homes in indigenous populations would be the first to be vaccinated once the national campaign starts. Both vaccines require 2 doses. While government technicians said there is still information needed on the shots, they say the benefits of vaccinations outweigh the risk. And following the deadly earthquake that hit Indonesia's Sulawesi Island on Friday, rescue efforts continue with the death toll sharply rising from the original 35. At least 81 people have been confirmed dead and more than 250 seriously injured in the 6.2 magnitude quake, disaster mitigation spokesman Raditya Jati said in a statement this Monday. Rescue workers have stepped up efforts to find people buried beneath the rubble more than 3 days after an earthquake as medical workers battle to treat the injured. It is unclear how many more bodies could be under the debris or if there was anyone still trapped but alive more than 2 days after the disaster. It is feared that the death count could still climb. Aerial images from the devastated seaside city showed buildings reduced to a tangled mass of twisted metal and chunks of concrete, including the regional governor's office. More than 19,000 people are left homeless by the quake that struck while many were still asleep early on Friday morning. Indonesia notably has a history of devastating earthquakes and tsunamis, with more than 2,000 killed in a 2018 quake. With that, we end this edition of the news on DBS Television. Thanks for watching and see you tomorrow.